Good evening. I'd like to call the council meeting of Monday, October 16th, 2023 to order. Can everyone stand for the playing of the national anthem?
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Car ton bras s'est porté le pays, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Niagara Region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendurong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Grimsby, or of Niagara, and the town of Grimsby stands with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Before we approve the agenda, we have a note from the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this evening's amendments to the agenda are as follows. Councillor Bradsey advised staff that he will be lifting for separate consideration the finance minutes of October 11th, finance motion number FC 23019 40 Mile Bridge Project. Councillor Bradsey added a notice of motion, 30-day appeal period. He will be asking to waive the rules of procedure to consider this evening. Councillor Charwa added two notices of motion. They are gender-based violence and intimate partner violence epidemic. Councillor Charwell will ask that the rules be waived to consider this evening, and the creation of a lobbyist register. And that's the amendments for this evening.
Great, thank you, Bonnie. Now we need a mover and seconder for the amended agenda. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that the October 16, 2023 council meeting agenda be approved as amended. All in favor? That's carried. Up next, we have chair's reports. I'll start it off with the Planning and Development Committee meeting. We met on September 20th, 2023. We actually accomplished quite a bit in our 18-minute meeting. We lifted a heritage resolution about demolition of a modern part of a heritage building. We just had a friendly amendment to change the wording just to make it make more sense, and it was agreed by all the committee. And we had Bianca here from Heritage, and she was okay with it as well. We also approved the consolidated OP and ZBA, and we also amended a sign bylaw allowing larger signs adjacent to the Queen Elizabeth Way. So we wrapped that all up in 18 minutes. So thank you. Up next, we have Councillor DeFlavio, Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Ours was also a pretty quick meeting on September 25th for Public Works. There was a discussion report which was related to an encroachment agreement for 3 East Street in Grimsby Beach. For those who are familiar with Grimsby Beach, many of those houses were built in, let's say, not standard lots, so there are quite a few encroachments down there. This encroachment agreement was to recognize an encroachment, an existing encroachment. The encroachments were for the house foundation, for a portion of the dwelling, part of the retaining wall. There were a bunch listed. The costs are being paid for by the property owner. Anytime, these come up quite frequently because of the history of Grimsby Beach, so it's pretty standard. Next, there was correspondence related to the Transportation Master Plan update from Mr. Wortman. He gave a summary, and there were some questions and answers. The Transportation Master Plan is moving forward. There are, I'm thinking November, I think was the date that staff was thinking it was coming forward. We're hoping to incorporate all the things that people have been talking about as far as our Transportation Master Plan, and of course go to public input and as much as possible. And under other business, Member Smink asked about an update on the Downtown Reimagine project. Brandon explained that they are reaching next steps on a number of components of the project, which include the parking study, which is important for everybody. We've had multiple discussions about parking downtown, and hopefully that parking study will shed some light on our needs and our wants down there. There will be a workshop to engage the public in the Downtown Reimagine concept coming forward in the future, and the RFP hopefully for detailed design will be out in November, and hopefully by the end of the year. And that's it for Public Works, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor DeFlavio. Up next, we have Councillor Sharwa, Community Services.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. So our committee met on September 26th. It was pretty standard, although I feel like I've forgotten everything that's happened. However, I'll just highlight some of the things that came up. The Santa Claus Parade will be held on December the 2nd. The camp and swim lessons for the summer were another big sellout. And we discussed trying to make sure that we are prioritizing Grimsby residents. So we've asked the committee to come back with some recommendations on how we can do that. There's free public swimming that we had during the summer on heat warning days. We're asking for council to approve the continuation of free swimming on those heat days. The Grimsby DIA Holiday Market scheduled for December 1st, 2023. And the fall recreation calendar programming has continued. It's been a great success. There are 739 participants registered to date in a variety of programs. Casablanca Waterfront Park is still maintaining, is still on an established schedule. So that's great. PKC expansion. There was an open house held on September 27th. A number of council members were there. It was a very good turnout. The public was there as well. We have a construction manager now on board. Aquacon is a leading builder of multi-use recreation facilities in Ontario with significant experience in Niagara, having built Canada Games Park and Thorold and Vale Community Centre in Port Colborne. So it's exciting that we have them on board. Community grants program has been extended to ensure that we get a good response. So that was extended till just into early October. Online ice bookings are a little bit more transparent now, a little more available if anybody wants to book some hockey time. I know this was kind of an issue last year, so it's opened up and you can see what's available and book that way. TD Tree Park at Southwood Park happened on September 17th. The TD volunteers planted 250 trees and shrubs at Southwood Community Park through the TD Tree Days program. And lastly, Arts Walk was held on September 23rd, and Grimsby Blows is upcoming for its second year on Wednesday, November 1st, from 5:30 to 7:30 at Coronation Park, and we should get more details on that soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharwa. Up next, we have adoption of the previous minutes. Oh, sorry. I forgot finance. How could I forget that? Councillor DeVoli, you're up. I'm trying to get ahead of myself.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. So the Finance Committee was held just a few short days ago as well, on October 11th of 2023. There were two primary reports that came to the committee, the first one being Finance Report 23-27 on the 40 Mile Creek pedestrian bridge. And I will say that with some consternation from the committee members, or some concerns, perhaps that's the best way, concern that, you know, these projects, many of our projects keep coming back in over what we originally estimated them to be. And unfortunately, in this case, this one as well. So the revised budget for this particular project is now being put at $650,000, and that with a $95,000 budget amendment that came to finance. The proposal is to have that funded from the Parkland Dedication Reserve, of which there is considerable money in that particular reserve, over $6 million. And so from that perspective, the committee was somewhat comfortable. I will say, still concerned, wondering what else the Parkland Dedication Reserve is sort of earmarked for or set aside for, but nevertheless, at the end of the day, the motion did carry. The second report that came to finance was 23-28 on user charges, user fees and charges, and again, have gone out to get quotes on this particular work, and it too has come in at greater than what was first envisioned, so now another $11,500 more than what was originally envisioned, and so was asking for an approval for that, and it would be funded from the Corporate Projects Reserve, and that too was carried. And then our last point, that really is just for information for everybody. The committee had a number of meetings ago decided to change our meetings to start at 6 o'clock. This last meeting was a special finance committee called to sort of move some things along here. And unfortunately, it started at 5 o'clock, which may have caused some concern for some committee members trying to leave work on time and get to our meeting. So going forward, we will be reverting back to our 6 p.m. start times. And that concludes our report. Mayor Jordan.
Thank you, Councillor DeVoli. Up next, we have approval of previous minutes, but first, Councillor Baradzi has requested FC 23-19 be lifted for separate consideration. So moved by Councillor Baradzi, second by Councillor Frake, resolved that FC 23-19 from the Finance Standing Committee minutes of October 11th, 2023 be lifted for separate consideration. All in favor? That's carried.
Is it 2319 or 29?
23.
I have 2319 here. I do believe it's the...
The resolution number, please.
23-019, yes.
Yeah.
It is.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's the
All
resolution
right.
number.
So that's the pedestrian bridge. Councillor Baradzi?
Thank you, Mayor Jordan, through you. As Councillor Delight just alluded to in her chair's report, there's some concerns growing of what the reserves are earmarked for. And given kind of the shortfall with the arena project and funding and the loss in funding from the potential removals of land, I'm just not comfortable just yet to say to approve $700,000 for this. I think we should just defer it until we can look at our strategic priorities on a more wholesome and fulsome costed kind of analysis per priority. And I just wanted to make a deferral until we could have a chance to review our strategic priorities more wholesomely.
All right, do you have a seconder for your deferral? Councillor Frake. Sarah Sweeney, do you happen to be there? Because I guess if this is deferred, how does that affect the procurement process?
Hi, yeah, thanks, Mayor Jordan, and good evening, members of council. So we are under a bit of a tight procurement timeframe with this. Part of the procurement does specify a specific window to complete the bridge within, because there is some specific windows of time that we can do the in-water works related to the creek. So if it was council's direction not to proceed with the bridge, then we would need to cancel the procurement and then redo a procurement at a later date. The one other thing I will just flag is, depending on what direction is taken, that the existing bridge there is not safe. We do our best to keep it closed, and people keep trying to find ways to use it, which I think speaks to its importance in the community. And at some point, we do need to remove that bridge if we are not looking to proceed with replacing it. So just looking for a bit of direction depending on where council wishes to go, because if the feeling is to defer and perhaps not proceed, then we would be asking to use those funds to remove the bridge. And just one other note, if we do remove the bridge and then we proceed with it later, we would need to do an environmental assessment as well. So we would need to take some extra steps as part of the project. Since I have the floor, I just have to mention, if that's okay, Mayor Jordan, the bridge and the trail was highlighted as an important community amenity worth investing in the Parks, Recreation and Trails Master Plan in 2019, and also came up quite a bit in the Recreational Trails Master Plan, which we are just working to finalize. And again, we hear a lot of feedback from the community about asks about when that bridge will be repaired. Totally understand the concerns regarding finance and future pressures, but I did feel it was worthy of mentioning that.
Thank you, Sarah. How much would an environmental assessment cost in the ballpark? Do you have any idea?
Through you, Mayor Jordan, I'm really not certain. I would have to learn. I'm also not 100% certain, because we didn't cost it, as to what it would cost to demolish the existing bridge separately from building a new bridge.
All right, thank you. You have your deferral resolution.
I sent it to Bonnie.
Yeah.
She got it. I just wanted to add to one point too, that it's, I do recognize that this bridge is well liked from the adjacent community. I just think we have 2 excavators sitting at strikes. I'm not sure what the plans are there, but I just see this as something down the line that we could receive as a community benefit, or that a developer could end up providing for the community should something happen there.
Thank you, Councillor Bradsey. Moved by Councillor Bradsey, second by Councillor Frake. Whereas the town of Grimsby has many capital projects outlined in our strategic priorities, and whereas the Peach King Centre expansion has a significant shortfall in funding, and whereas the approval of capital projects now may present the approval of future projects or initiatives or result in substantial tax increases, therefore be it resolved that council defer the project until it can wholesomely view all its strategic priorities with estimated costs, and further that staff present council with opportunities to cut spending to make up for the shortfall. Recorded vote.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bradsey.
Yes.
Councillor Sharwa.
No.
Councillor DeVoli.
Yes.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Yes.
Councillor Frake.
Yes.
Councillor Howe.
Yes.
Councillor Korstanji.
No.
Councillor Vardy.
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
And that's carried.
All right, now we need a mover and seconder for adoption of previous minutes. Moved by Councillor Freg, second by Councillor DeVoley. Moved by Councillor Freg, second by Councillor DeVoley. Resolved that the following minutes be approved. Council, September 18th, 2023. Planning and Development, September 20th, 2023. Public Works, September 25th, 2023. Community Services, September 26th, 2023. And Finance Committee, as amended, October 11th, 2023. All in favor for approval? That's carried. All right, next we move the Heritage endorsement package from their September 12th meeting. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee Council endorsement package be approved. All in favor? And that's carried. Up next, Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee minutes. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Freg, second by Councillor Bradzi. Moved by Councillor Freg, second by Councillor Bradzi. Resolved that the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee minutes dated September 12th, 2023 be received. All in favor? And that's carried. Are there any announcements? Councillor Corstangi.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'd just like to give a shout out to the Grimsby Art Gallery for their event, Truth and Reconciliation. I know there are a lot of events around, and I did attend this one, and Councillor DeFlavio was there as well. And I just like to commend them for tackling some of the harder parts of truth and reconciliation and educating us on some of the tougher topics. It was a fantastic event, fantastic speaker, and it was quite educational. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the Grimsby Art Gallery for that.
Thank you, Councillor Corstangi. Councillor Freg.
Just like to note that some of us at council decided to walk in the Charity for Julian's Place on Friday, sorry. Councillor, you. The only one that walked in high heels was Jacob. I have to give him a lot of credit. So yeah, it was a great day. We walked a mile, and apparently, as a result of us walking that mile with Mr. DeSantis' folks, he donated $30,000 to the Julian House, which was $30,000 against $125,000 they were trying to raise, which was quite significant. So it was a fun day and a great day for walking in high heels, wasn't it, Jacob?
It was a great weekend, actually. So we had the Friday walk in Grimsby on the Lake. Then actually went and dropped the puck in high heels at the Peachtree Games on Friday, and then did the walk at the Penn Center. So I have some blisters on my feet to make up for it, but it's for a good cause.
Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, I just wanted to clarify from the finance chair. I didn't get a chance to speak on it because we weren't allowed to debate. The finance committee unanimously approved that finance. So and the decision afterwards were by a few members. It was a unanimous decision for that.
Yeah, Councillor Sharwa, this is not, this is outside our procedure bylaw. This is definitely not an announcement. Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Worship. The Grimsby Author Series kicked off its 22nd or 23rd season. I don't want to make a mistake, but at the library, it was a packed house, sold out. The next two events, I believe, are both sold out as well, coming in October and November. There will be a spring season as well in the new year, so keep an eye out for tickets. I'm hoping that once the auditorium is built at West Niagara Secondary School that maybe we can get in there, because in the past, it's been a terrific fundraiser for the library, allowed us to do some really neat things at the library, and getting as many people in that want to see these authors, like Terry Fallis, who's coming in November, who's been, I think, 6 times to the author series, and who's hilarious and a great speaker, is always a great idea. And further to Councilor Corstangi's mentioning of the Truth and Reconciliation event at the Art Gallery, it was definitely something that people should see. It was not easy. It was a very difficult talk that day, but one that I think that every adult should, at some point in their lives, be exposed to understand the impact of residential schools and on the ongoing impact of residential schools on our Indigenous community. It was, I think that members of council know that I'm very seldom left speechless, but that was one of those times that there wasn't much you could say, because it was hard not to be in tears at the end of that speech. So thank you to everybody involved in making that happen, because that was special. Thank you.
Seeing no further announcements, up next we have consent report PA 23-33. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Howe, second by Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Howe, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that council hereby approves the following item, that the consent item be approved on the recommendations as contained therein. PA 23-33, resolved that report PA 23-33, Council Direction Report, 400 Main Street West, 482 Main Street West, 123 Main Street West, 417 Main Street West, 470 Main Street West, and 421 Elizabeth Street, dated October 18th, 2023 be received, and that council proceed with the passing of the designation bylaws for the properties at 400 Main Street West, 482 Main Street West, 123 Main Street West, 417 Main Street West, 470 Main Street West, and 421 Elizabeth Street. All in favor? That's carried. Up next, we have the discussion report, PA 23-33, and Bianca, I think you want to talk about it? Are you there?
That's Henry.
Because it was passed, I guess, Bianca, you don't need to talk about it, do you? All right, fair enough. Just need a mover and seconder for report PA 23-33.
Because we did it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. So it's
Yeah.
only if it didn't pass. All right. It's getting confusing here. All right, next we have report by BYL 23-04 on discharge of firearms and Bose bylaw options. Henry, you wanted to speak on that? Welcome.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Council, for the time to speak up here. I have a little presentation here just to, whenever you're ready, Katie. So, my name's Henry. I'm the coordinator of municipal law enforcement for the town of Grimsby. In front of you today, you have report BYL 23-04. So this presentation will just go through essentially what the report covers, and then we'll hold some questions at the end. So next slide, please. So our first section here that we're going to cover is the public input portion. So on top of the public survey that was held, the open house that was held on March 1st, 2023, we held an online survey as well from early February till about March 8th. So we saw a total of 100 participants across the entire town. So with that, they had to provide postal codes as an option. Unfortunately, there is no way to fact check that information. So these were the results that we found. So with allowing discharge on agriculturally zoned properties, we saw about 52% agree with that. And then with the question covering agricultural zone properties south of Ridge Road. So this is Ridge Road West and Ridge Road East. We saw that uptick, 54% of people agree, and then obviously discharging on Lake Ontario, that's where we saw that majority disagreed with that 64%. So further going on that information, we actually broke it down to Ward 1 and 2 up where that major impact would be held at Ward 1 and 2 if we allowed for discharge up south of Ridge Road. So in Ward 1, we actually saw a even split of individuals agree and disagree with that. And then in Ward 2, we saw an overwhelming favor of 29 to 11 to allow for discharge south of Ridge Road. Next slide, please. So just some major changes to cover with the draft bylaw in front of you that would allow for discharge south of Ridge Road. So the main thing is that it would permit the discharge of firearms or bows for the purpose of hunting below south of Ridge Road. And then we've added these new maps just to make it easier on the individuals. So the map on the right-hand side is our portion of Lake Ontario, which is found on the Government of Ontario website, GIS. So at the bottom right-hand corner of that map, we actually have a little table that shows kilometers so that people can actually measure out how far that they need to go before they leave the town of Grimsby area. And then the map on the left is the lands within the town of Grimsby, which is the proposed permitted and non-permitted discharge areas. Next slide, please. And then the other option is the amendment to the current bylaw of 2062. So unfortunately, with the bylaw that passed, the amendment that passed previously to this on March 6, 2023, that amended the penalty section. Unfortunately, in that review, there was a oversight on the penalty portion being reviewed against the municipal act. So this is just to repair essentially that amendment to bring down that minimum fine amount to $500. Unfortunately, we cannot cross that threshold. So as we see there, Municipal Act Section 429, subsection 3, and then under the heading of 1. So the minimum fine shall not exceed $500 and the maximum fines shall not exceed $100. So we do have to keep in context, these are the fines when the judge or justices of the peace review the matters in court. So this is not for us to set. This is what essentially a Part 1, which would be like a Provincial Offences Act ticket. We would give them the ticket for that $1,000 amount that can be found in the amended portion, but that is not the convicted amount. So that individual still has the opportunity to fight that ticket, and so the courts will look at this section and review that section to make sure when they find that person potentially guilty of that offense, this is what they would go upon. Next slide, please. Oh, perfect. Okay, so at this time, we'll be taking any questions if there are any.
Councillor Frake.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Can I make an amendment now? Or do I have to wait till we have a discussion? I've read through this, Henry. Thank you for the presentation.
Make an amendment now.
I do have a concern with the general prohibitions. And, for example, 5.1B, you can discharge firearms within 150 meters of any target, 150 meters of any prohibited area of the town. 150 meters is not that far. And if you talk about just the escarpment, I know below the escarpment, we've got that sorted out. But above the escarpment, if you're 150 meters is what? 450 feet? If you're walking the Bruce Trail, or you're walking your dog in the park, or you're cutting your grass or whatever anywhere on the escarpment, you're never very far from someone who might have fired a power rifle or a crossbow, because they go much further than this. And I would have a big concern that anyone on the escarpment would be in danger of being hit by a stray bullet or a stray arrow. I would go as far as, my amendment, I would like to make the amendment that there be no firearms discharged in Grimsby at all. I know the firearms are protected because that falls under different legislation, so we don't have to worry about them. So I'd like to make the amendment that we just enforce this across the whole of Grimsby, boundary to boundary.
Do we have a seconder?
Thank you.
We have Councillor Christina.
I'll second it.
Yeah, we have a mover and seconder on the amendment. The clerk will write it out, so we'll start the discussion list with Councillor DeVoley.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I will start by saying that this is a topic that I am not that familiar with, so I've tried to do a bit of research in the last while about it. And I truly understand the proposal that south of Ridge Road, we would be allowing it. I think what I wanted to do, and Henry, if I'm wrong, please jump in at any point in time, but my understanding of this is that hunters, when they go out, do not need a permit and are allowed to go out on Crown lands, being federal and provincial lands. And that above the escarpment within the town of Grimsby, there are no Crown lands. So that the only way that someone can actually hunt on the escarpment is they must get permission from the private landowner to do so. And even then, if they do so, they are restricted to that piece of property. If they happen to shoot, I'll say a deer, who runs a bit farther and ends up on someone else's property, they must then either go and get the permission of that private landowner, or they're not allowed to retrieve it, basically, their kill. So my understanding is that there is not, a lot of places for hunters to go above the escarpment where they can just kind of go without having anyone's permission. They will only be on land where a private landowner has given them that permission. And even then, they'll be restricted to that piece of property. My understanding, too, is that we don't have a lot of wildlife up there. I'll say, my understanding is we have turkeys, we may have some quail, we have the occasional deer, and not much else that I would say most hunters might be after. But again, I'm not a hunter. Someone may correct me and say, no, there's lots that there is there. But what I see in restricting it to anything south of Ridge Road is that we truly have curtailed very greatly the amount of land where hunters can go. So I have no concerns with that particular recommendation that we allow it south of Ridge Road. I think it creates a very limited place where they can go, and so be it, that is what it is. I will say that I do echo the concerns raised already about the 150 meters. There are certainly, and I'm not suggesting someone's going to go out and hunt turkey, perhaps with a very high-powered rifle, but certainly there is ammunition, there are firearms out there that are very accurate and can shoot very long ranges, kilometers in effect. And so truly, 150 meters seems very short to me too. I had asked Mr. Bose earlier what other surrounding municipalities do, and he told me that, the maximum of the municipalities around us is 300 meters. And so I would like to suggest that 300 meters, even that, as a non-hunter, seems like a close distance, but certainly seems like something safer than 150 meters. And so, Mayor Jordan, those are my two comments on this.
All right, any other speakers? Councillor Howe.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Most of the people that are going to be hunting up there are going to be hunting with shotgun because of the game that they would be after. And 150 meters is a fair distance for a shotgun. Shotgun does not carry that far. Now you can get slugs, yes, there's no question. And you can get, and even most 22s are hard pressed to give you any kind of hit at about 150 meters. Now they can use different ammunition and it will carry, but the 150, couple of farmers up there I talked to, it didn't seem to bother them, so.
Councillor Korstanji.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I just have a couple comments. 100 people out of 30,000 I don't think is adequate public consultation. It's very minimal. And the other thing is, did we consider the Trails Master Plan when we were looking at this bylaw? Because up above Ridge Road, we're looking at making a trail plan for recreational activity all in that area, and we're going to open it up to hunting, and then we're going to say, okay, we're going to make it all recreational with all these trails, which is going to cause, I think, we're just creating a problem we're going to have to deal with in another couple months when we do that anyway. With the master plan, we have cycling routes, all those roads, there's Bruce Trail, there's all these other trails that are supposed to all connect. So I'm just wondering if you took that in consideration when making your plan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I had a quick review of that. So that's where we covered the 150 meters from any recreational trail in here as well, I believe. Yes. So yes, we would have to review that to ensure that any future trails, we put an amendment forward to increase those distances in those areas just to ensure. But yes, you are correct in that.
Sorry, did you look at what is forecasted with the Trails Master Plan or just what is there now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just basically at this time, we just did a quick review. So when those trails would come into place, we would make amendments to our mapping just to include that. Unfortunately, with our GIS limitations, just to narrow in on each, it would just take quite a long time with the current time. So we would obviously restrict those areas in the future. Once that was put into place, we would make those amendments. But we are here at the willingness and whatever council needs at this time.
Councillor Bradzi.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I just wanted to touch on Section 4 exemptions, 4.1H. So a farmer or their agent discharging a firearm or bow on land owned by the farmer in order to scare or destroy animals. So that being there, if obviously building on what Councillor Davoli said, if they have permission from any land, they can be the agent and they're hunting, say, deer, coyote. Can you kind of expand on the definition of agent in this sense?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the agent would be anybody that they designate to carry out those duties. So it wouldn't be for the purpose of hunting. So at this time, what they would be doing is discharging towards an animal or at an animal that is currently either destroying crop and or property of that farmer. It would not be considered a hunt at that time. It is just a protection of property and livestock.
But can an agent just be any licensed firearm owner and registered hunter, or is it like specific businesses?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it could be anybody they designate to do that duty.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. So, Henry, how did you arrive at the 150 meters? If you can give a background.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we arrived at that 150 meters, just kind of looking at our surrounding municipalities. So looking at the city of Hamilton, they were at about 100 meters, and then we saw the pendulum swing on the other side to Lincoln, where it's about 300 meters. So we just arrived somewhere in the middle. This was, I wanted to open it up for discussion just to make sure that we weren't either being too lenient or too harsh. So this is where this discussion is good, and we're willing to change that distance, obviously, to whatever the will of council is at this time.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. So, I'm fine with it as written. I agree with Councillor Davoli if we want to change it to like 1,000 feet, so 304.8 meters, I think it is. That's, but just for context, I think Councillor Howe already mentioned that a shotgun is a pretty limited shot, and a 22, I think the range is like 140 meters, something like that. So 300 meters gives plenty of leeway. I think that there are plenty of rules as far as the discharge of firearms anyway, and people who are discharging firearms are generally very safe. So while I want to make sure that we protect the residents of Grimsby, I don't think it needs to be so restrictive as to eliminate hunting completely. So I'm fine with south of Ridge Road, the geographic area that you've set forward. And if we wanted to go to 300 meters to make people feel more comfortable as far as a buffer is concerned, I think that that's a fair compromise. I think that outlawing hunting just I don't think it's necessary. I think that the restrictions that you've put in place will pretty much outlaw hunting for the most part, except for on very large parcels of land anyway. It'll kind of by default be outlawing it, but on large parcels of land where the farmer is allowing it and where it's with the okay of the landowner, I'm fine with it. So those are my 2 cents. Thanks.
Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. I'm leaning towards being okay with it, but I'm hoping that if there are any hunters who are watching, which I'm sure there are many, that they recognize the fact that if this passes, that it is their responsibility to ensure the public is safe and that this doesn't go off the rails like the duck hunting did, because we can easily just come back to council and reverse all of this and this will be done. So please be responsible. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to add on top of that, I just wanted to just express that there are a lot of federal and provincial laws around hunting, and it is highly regulated. So I myself took the restricted and non-restricted course just to become further educated in it, and most of the individuals that I spoke to and met were very much law-abiding citizens, but we're here to listen to and follow the direction of council.
Councillor DeVolik.
Mayor Jordan, I'd just like to add one last thought that I forgot to add in my first discussion earlier. It's my understanding, though, that in these days of technology, that a lot of hunters use the iHunter app. And what I found so good about that app is it very clearly marks out property boundaries. So, if you're on someone's property and you hit something and it keeps moving to somebody else's property, it very clearly shows them where they are and where the property lines are and so on. And seems to be a tool that hunters like very much to use so that they stay within the rules. That's all.
All right, seeing no further, Councillor Frank, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I still stick with that original amendment. I still have a concern because, Grimsby is a small town. This is not like Northern Ontario. If you're a hunter, you go to the wilderness and you hunt. That's where you go. You don't come to a small town of Grimsby where people live from border to border. Yes, they have large tracts of lands up there, but those large tracts of land are still vulnerable. If someone is 150 meters is from here, halfway from here to Peace King Center. If I'm sitting on someone's property hunting and I fire across, I could be firing into the other person's property, which could be a house with a small piece of property. So, it's not the hunters that take the responsibility. Sorry, Councillor Shaw, I have to disagree with you. We take the responsibility because we set the policy. So it's our responsibility to ensure this doesn't happen. It's okay to talk about 22 rifles and shotguns, but we don't know what kind of guns they're going to use. They could use whatever gun they want. We don't have any control over that. So the way we can kind of control that is putting in place no hunting, period. That's it. Done deal. This is the town of Grimsby. This is not North Bay or Sudbury or Thunder Bay, where you can go out into the wilderness 100 miles and hunt. Sorry, I don't know how we can be so small-minded as to think that in Grimsby someone can fire a rifle up onto the escarpment. I'm sorry, I just can't agree with that. And hopefully you recognize that as well. So yes, there's all kinds of things we can do and say, but I think we need to just ban it completely. And if farmers need to deal with these types of things on their property, then they should be allowed to do that. But that's written into a different legislation. Is that right, Henry? So I'll leave it at that. I've spoken twice. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you, When I was a kid, my dad was a hunter, and I hunted with my dad. I haven't hunted since I was very young. But I could tell you that even as a youth who got his hunting license when he was 16, and I learned to shoot a gun about the same time that I learned to ride a bike. That was just the way that it was when I was a kid growing up. Responsibility was the first and foremost thing that you learned. And it's the first thing that you learn as a gun owner and somebody who discharges a gun. Nobody's going out there and firing willy-nilly into the horizon. They're firing at a target, and they're being responsible. If people want to restrict the space, and despite the fact that I'm not a hunter anymore, I understand that it is a leisure activity that people do. It is an important part of balancing the ecosystem. There are lots of reasons to support it, even though I'm not a hunter. So I want to err on the side of caution, of course, but I think that what you've written already does that. I think that the restrictions that you put in place, in addition to the provincial and federal discharge bylaws and all the rules that go with hunting, pretty much, if they don't make it impossible to hunt in the town of Grimsby, make it very difficult to do anything outside of the law without clearly breaking the law. So I'm happy with it the way it's written. I will not support an amendment unless it's for distance. I've spoken twice as well, but I do want to point out that people are responsible. That it's not Yosemite Sam. People aren't going out there and shooting their guns up into the air. There are rules for how you transport your weapon. There are limitless rules now with weapons in Ontario and in Canada. And Grimsby we have an urban area, and you very clearly said that there will be no firing of weapons within that urban area. That is perfect. But we also have a rural part of Grimsby that people tend to forget about. And that rural area is an area where hunting would traditionally be allowed, in my opinion. So I'm fine with it the way that you wrote it. Thank you.
Councillor Korstanji.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just personally think that we should develop the Trails Master Plan or have that come forward before we put this in motion, because we're kind of putting the cart before the horse, because we're going to have to reevaluate this once we get all those recreational trails up there anyway. The other concern I have is we have rules in place. We couldn't control what was going on when we lifted the BIRL in the first place. This is why we're here, right? So I don't have 100% faith that everybody's going to be responsible, because that's how we got here in the first place. So I honestly don't have anything against hunting, but I feel like we're going to be back at this table again, having the same conversation once we're trying to establish a trails plan, and then, then all of a sudden we put all this cycling and all this recreational family stuff up there where we've allowed hunting.
Councillor Bradsey.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I just want to get back to the water issue part of this. I just wanted to know, what is the plan for enforcing and issuing fines? Do you have in terms of locating where they are on the water? How are we going to be able to enforce that they're actually in Grimsby waters when we want to issue fines?
So through that, with our enforcement plan, we would be trying to use as many other resources as possible, because we're more of a land-based kind of enforcement. So we'd have to stand at land and potentially navigate with the OPP if they had potential boats in the water at the time, or Coast Guard if we could utilize those resources. Another method is to potentially have them ping their location out there just to ensure where they are. But those would be kind of the enforcement tactics that we would use to enforce on Lake Ontario, kind of other agencies and technology.
Just wanted to piggyback off Councillor Davoli's previous mentioning of the app too. I was wondering if we can maybe reach out to that app provider and have this area marked out in red in geospatial referencing on the app. Maybe it's an idea to actually deter them or tell them when they're in our waters. So I don't, as much as I'd like to see you have a boat, I don't want to buy you a boat, Henry. So
Seeing no further questions or comments, I'll just add one. Just given the fact that we have almost 1,500 residents above the escarpment who are often felt like they're second-class citizens, and the fact that only 40 residents above the escarpment and only 100 town-wide actually approved that out of 30,000 people, or actually answered the survey out of 30,000 people. I would definitely err on the side of safety and give the 1,500 residents up above the same safety concerns as we give down below. So I'll just leave it at that. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Vardy, that resolved that there be no firearms and bows released anywhere in the boundaries in Grimsby. Recorded vote.
Recorded vote on that amendment. Councillor Bradzi.
No.
Councillor Charrois.
Yes.
Councillor DeVoli.
No.
Councillor DeFlavio.
No?
Councillor Frake.
Yes.
Councillor Howe.
No.
Councillor Korstanji.
Yes.
Councillor Vardy.
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
And it's carried.
All right. So we just need a clarification
Yes,
on
clarification.
that being.
For sure.
Henry, can you please clarify?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So tonight, as I've witnessed, we've amended the current draft bylaw in front of you to allow for no discharge within the town of Grimsby lands or waters. So that obviously includes Lake Ontario. So therefore, that will also fix the penalty section because that's been altered within the draft bylaw. So once the draft bylaw in front of you is amended to reflect those changes, then that's what will be passed.
Great, that clarifies it. Councillor DeFlavio?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. So does that, are the other parts about farmers protecting their livestock, that's still legal, right? Like I just want to make sure that the traditional uses of, it doesn't disallow any, like all discharge of firearms just for hunting. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. So farmers are protected under provincial legislation to have that ability to protect their land from those predators.
They're still actually protected in our bylaw too, in exemption section 4, then subsection H.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that outlawing, because it was pretty general, the way that it was stated, no discharge within the town of Grimsby, that I wanted to clarify that the hunters, that farmers still were able to do what they needed to do to protect their livestock.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, those exemptions in that bylaw will still be existent.
All right, thank you very much, Henry. Thank you for
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
clarifying.
Thank you. Thanks, Henry.
All right, now we move to section 14.1, Councillor Charwa, CAO contract. Need a mover and seconder.
Yeah. And the mover, yeah.
And seconder.
Seconded by Councillor DeFlavio. All right, I'll have Councillor Charwa, you're welcome to read your
Okay.
resolution.
Whereas the town of Grimsby passed a motion at the August 8th, 2023 council meeting in closed session offering the vacant CAO position to our acting CAO. And whereas the terms of our new CAO's employment contract, including salary, benefits, job description, and its objectives have not been shared with all council members. And whereas bylaw 2074, 1.3B states members shall serve and be seen to serve their constituents in a conscientious and diligent manner. And whereas council members have a responsibility to ensure budgets are upheld and employment contracts minimize legal liabilities on the town of Grimsby in the future. And therefore be it resolved that the mayor direct the Director of Human Resources to release the current town of Grimsby CAO employment contract in a confidential manner to all council members.
Thank you, Councillor Charwa. Before we start the discussion on this, because we have an identifiable individual under Section 2392B of the Municipal Act, we're going to have to move into closed to discuss this further. So we need a mover and seconder to move into closed. Moved by Councillor Korstanji. It's on ruling of the clerk.
I'm not taking this into closed, so I'm happy to have this conversation out here. It's a pretty simple motion to discuss. And I would just like to compare it to when I had requested this information with our last CAO, and the privacy commissioner deemed it a public information, and I received it in its entirety.
And that was after it went through FOI, but because it's an HR matter and we're dealing with an identifiable individual, to protect that identifiable individual's rights, we need to go into closed as a council.
I'm not going into closed.
Have a mover to go into closed. Councillor Bradzi, you'd second? Seconded by Councillor Bradzi. Moved by Councillor Korstanji, second by Councillor Bradzi. Resolved that council meet in closed session under Section 2392B of the Municipal Act, where a closed meeting is held if personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. All in favor to move into closed?
Recorded vote.
All right, recorded vote to move into closed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bradzi.
No goes to closed, right? Or yes to go into closed?
Yes to close.
Yes, go into closed.
Councillor Charwa.
No.
Councillor DeVoli.
Yes.
Councillor DeFlavio.
No?
Councillor Frake.
Yes.
Councillor Howe.
Yes.
Councillor Korstanji.
Yes.
Councillor Vardy.
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
And that's carried.
All right, now we're going to move into closed. Welcome back, everyone. We've actually been out of closed for about 10 minutes. We just were alerted that the YouTube streaming did not update. So there were a couple of notices of motion that were read in open session that didn't get on the YouTube feed. But now we'll move, that will all appear in the minutes. And we'll move to section 15.4, Councillor Charwa, gender-based violence and intimate partner violence epidemic. Councillor Charwa?
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. Whereas in Niagara Region in 2022, there were 5,160 intimate partner violence calls for service made to Niagara Regional Police Service, and 1,143 of those calls involved criminal investigations. And whereas the 2022-2023 fiscal year, Victim Services Niagara provided service to 749 victims of intimate partner violence, including 31 children, developed 91 safety plans for victims, and had to revise 55 of those safety plans due to breaches. And whereas for the 2022-2023 fiscal year, Victim Services Niagara provided service to 227 victims of sexual violence. And whereas for the 2022-2023 fiscal year, Birchway Niagara received 2,571 crisis calls, supported 575 women through outreach services, 233 women and children stayed in shelter, and 278 women were turned away due to lack of space. And whereas for the 2022-2023 fiscal year, Jillian's Place received 10,383 crisis calls, supported 2,017 people through outreach services, 166 adults and 127 children lived in shelter, and 431 people were turned away due to lack of space. And whereas Niagara Regional Council at its meeting on September 21st, 2023 passed a motion that includes the recognition of gender-based violence and intimate partner violence in Niagara as serious to the health and wellness of local residents and their families. And whereas the town of Grimsby stands with Niagara Regional Council in their motion declaring intimate partner violence and gender-based violence as an epidemic. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Grimsby recognize the issues of gender-based violence and intimate partner violence in Niagara, including Grimsby, as serious to the health and wellness of local residents and their families. And 2, endorse the declaration of intimate partner violence and gender-based violence as epidemic. And 3, commit to engaging with community partners such as Jillian's Place to provide education about intimate partner violence and gender-based violence as an epidemic, and provide contacts, resources for residents to access when in need of safety and support. And 4, that the town of Grimsby send a letter to the Premier of Ontario and Niagara's 4 MPPs recommending that gender-based violence and intimate partner violence be declared an epidemic in the province of Ontario, and that the province of Ontario provide the necessary support to municipalities, regions, and their emergency and social services to meaningfully address the gender-based violence and intimate partner violence epidemic. So I would ask that we suspend the rules and consider this tonight as well.
All right, Councillor DeFlavio will second that. Moved by Councillor Charwa, second by Councillor DeFlavio. Resolved that the rules of procedure be temporarily suspended by an affirmative vote of 2/3 to discuss Councillor Charwa's notice of motion based on gender-based violence and intimate partner violence epidemic. All in favor to suspend? I think we need a recorded vote because it needs to be 2/3.
Or they need to. Councillor Bradzi.
No.
Councillor Charwa.
Yes.
Councillor DeVoli.
Yes.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Yes.
Councillor Frake.
Yes.
Councillor Howe. Councillor Korstanji.
No.
Councillor Vardy.
Yes.
And Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
And that's carried.
Councillor Charwa.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. So this was written in response to originally the Aurora correspondence that we had a few weeks back. I wanted to support it then, but I think the urgency is even greater now. So I reached out to Regional Councillor in St. Catharines, Laura Epp, and she provided me with some of the statistics and the region's motion that was recently passed. And in addition to that, I think in Ontario, you'll see if you're paying attention, municipalities throughout Ontario are stepping up in the same way. I think Brantford is also coming forward with something similar this week. I think they're at around 47 municipalities supporting. So yes, I'm hoping that we can also support this as well, and it would be a great show of support in Niagara Region, and we would be the first municipality in Niagara Region endorsing it as well, outside of the region.
Councillor Bradzi.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I agree with everything you've written in the motion. I was just going to say that I do think we already we are working with Julian's Place, and I would like to, and I was just going to say we could just recirculate the Aurora Council resolution and kind of build upon with them. I'm just seeing as it was already on the agenda tonight, that was the only reason I didn't vote to suspend procedure. We absolutely support it, and did in fact walk a mile in her shoes, too. I was just going to vouch for showing more support for Aurora's resolution and recirculating that instead of writing a separate one.
Seeing no further, Councillor Kurstanji.
So I support the concept of this. This is the first I'm seeing of the motion, though, so it's hard to vote on something where this is the first time I'm reading it or hearing it. What I would like to see is a little bit more Grimsby-specific numbers and a little bit more of what we can do as a municipality to help our residents experiencing this, and just sort of elaborate on it. But I do support the cause, for sure.
Seeing no further discussion, the resolution has been read. All in favor? That's carried. Now we're moving to 15.5, Councillor Bradzi, 30-day appeal period. Take it away.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Whereas the province opened a 30-day appeal period for municipalities to voice their concerns regarding the rezoning of lands, which started today. Whereas the town of Grimsby allocated resource to work through these planning applications, and we now have no way to recoup the cost incurred. Whereas the town of Grimsby has many capital projects outlined in our strategic priorities, and the PKC expansion has a significant shortfall in funding. And whereas the two properties that were rezoned in Grimsby are not controversial properties and were slated to bring in millions of dollars in community benefits on top of development charges, therefore be it resolved that council and our council direct our CAO Sarah Kim and staff to consult with legal consultants, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Provincial Land and Development Facilitator to investigate the possibilities of moving forward with these applications during this 30-day appeal period. Due to the time sensitivity of this 30-day appeal period and that it has started today, I'm requesting that the procedure be lifted and this considered for resolution immediately. Thanks.
Katie, could you put that back up on the screen so we could read it? All right. Moved by Councillor Bradzi, second by Councillor Frank. Resolved that the rules of procedure be temporarily suspended by an affirmative vote of 2/3 to discuss Councillor Bradzi's motion on the 30-day appeal period. Recorded vote.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bradzi.
Yes?
Councillor Charrois.
This is for suspension of rules, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, no.
Councillor DeVoli.
Yes.
Councillor DeFlavio.
No.
Councillor Frake.
Yes.
Councillor Howe.
Yes.
Councillor Korstanji.
Yes.
Councillor Vardy.
Yes.
And Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
Carried.
All right. Any discussion? Councillor Bradzi? No?
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's definitely something we should at least try if there's going to be this 30-day appeal period. I don't see it as being a very high probability of it coming out this way, but given all the cost incurred of everything we've gone through and everything we need to fund coming up in the future, I think not pursuing an appeal would be foolish financially.
Councillor Frank.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I'd like to thank Councillor Barassi for bringing this forward. It's a bold move, and I must admit there's a lot of merit in us taking advantage of the situation, and there are some great opportunities in here. One you didn't mention, and I won't mention some of the things you've already mentioned in your resolution, and that is the more density we have around that area, the better chances we have of getting the GO train coming to town sooner as well, because the density is one of the biggest things we have to accomplish in order to justify that coming sooner than later. Yes, there's an opportunity to net some more funds on top of the development charges, so I think this is a good idea that we should take advantage of this situation within the 30-day period that we have to do it. So, and I would like to see staff pursue this a little further. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thanks, Your Worship. I agree that we should pursue it. I just think we need to give staff a chance to prepare the documentation. I've already asked, like, our planning staff, for example, we've got a 2005 growth management study that was done by A.J. Clark and Associates. We've got the letter regarding the Greenbelt review that occurred in 2015. There's a long history of this, so I just want staff to be able to put it all together. So as long as this, I didn't really get a chance to see the resolution. If it's sending it to staff to prepare that, then I'm fine with it. I don't know what the intent is. If the intent is us to do it, then so I don't know if we can put it back up there. I'm sorry, because we didn't get it in advance. And I know that it came out today. The changes came out today. So in your defense, sometimes you can't get things out there earlier. I just never got a chance to read it. So if the intent is to send it to staff for them to prepare our appeal or whatever that is, and then I'm fine with it. So is that in there? Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor DeVoli.
Mayor Jordan, my question is for our planning director, Mr. Matty. Are you able to shed any light on the proceedings that happened this afternoon, or anything you have besides what's been read to us that you know of on this topic?
I'm not familiar with the proceeding that I'm not familiar with the proceeding that you're referring to. That happened today?
I guess it was the announcement that came out today.
Oh, about the 30-day?
Yes, yes.
Well,
yes, sorry,
okay,
that's what I meant.
The announcement. So I don't, the only light I can shed on this is that I think it's part of the process, part of the process and procedures that they would do a 30-day period, and I think there is an opportunity to take advantage of that to, in principle, respond. And I think that I believe that this municipality and probably other municipalities are contemplating a similar action, particularly those affected obviously by the Greenbelt decision and the flip-flop of that Greenbelt decision, not to mention the private sector, who has also been impacted and has had significant costs borne by this flip-flop. So I think that there's anything that is revealed by this notice that would prevent this it being utilized for this purpose. And I think that it, at the very least, as I said, suggested, would get a point across. I don't know that it would be successful, but I think that I would suggest that probably one of the things that planning staff or staff would be exploring is the potential for alliance with other municipalities impacted by this as a collective voice of affected municipalities representing a vast number of taxpayers, which this administration is very reluctant to hurt and impact in a negative way. It might be a very significant impact, and that's still to be explored if we're given that direction.
I don't know how detailed the announcement was today, if there's even enough details out as to who the appeal is made to. Is it 30 days from today exactly? Or things like that. But yes, I would say I would support the concept of hearing from our staff and moving forward on this.
If given that direction, we would certainly provide a detailed look into that opportunity or window and to ensure that we can actually participate in that exercise.
Councillor Sharwell.
Through your Mayor Jordan, Harold, if I could ask you another question. So again, this is all, and I understand, Councillor Brazzi, this is a last minute thing. I totally get that. Now, I respect your opinion. So is this something that we should be supporting? Just give it to me, your professional opinion, please.
Speaking from the heart, I'm just really flabbergasted by the flip-flopping and the ease with which this government has done this, assuming that the only implications are its reputation, completely ignoring the extraordinary sweat, tears, and blood and effort and cost that has gone into what has been a very long period of time. I think that if you were to amass the amount of effort and cost and time spent on this, not just in this municipality, but across all of those areas affected by the Greenbelt, it would be quite extraordinary. And I think they talk about this not being over yet. I think this is just one drop in the bucket of a number of other possible implications of this really irresponsible decision-making by the province. And so this, no one is really aware of this hidden, I guess, cost that hasn't yet been made public. But I don't hear on the news anything being spoken about the implications and the efforts that were happening behind closed doors, such as what was occurring here in Grimsby. So I think no one is aware of it. And I think this, I guess, public reveal in some way is just an important, just one of the important missing links in the ongoing saga here. So that's but as I suggested, I think you in consolidation, in alliance with other municipalities, it would be interesting to reach out and find out how they feel about this and what implications this has caused them.
Thank you.
Councillor Brad.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Thank you, Harold. Those answers were very detailed. I just wanted to make one point kind of clear that technically right now, they are not in the Greenbelt. This period, 30-day window, is them going back into it. So it does present this opportunity for us to say, hey, hold on, we don't have a problem with these two going back in, we're fine with them out. And I think it's a nothing gained, nothing ventured, nothing gained scenario. We've already done all this work for it. And I think we can all agree that we certainly need the revenue that was going to be generated from it. And let's see what happens. And by next council, we should have some direction or some feedback of where that's going to go.
Mayor Jordan, can I just request that it come back up? I just want to be able to read it through one more time, if possible.
All right. All right, seeing no further discussion, everyone has read the resolution, and Councillor Frake has requested a recorded vote. All right, Councillor Bradzi has just emailed it to everyone, so we'll, if council wants to read it before the vote, I'll give them a couple minutes.
We didn't do this. Can we just call the question? This is going way too, for a short resolution, we're taking a lot of time. I think we should just move on.
All right, the recorded vote will take place now.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bradzi.
Yes.
Councillor Charwa. Councillor DeVoli.
Yes.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Yes.
Councillor Frake.
Yes. So, yes.
Councillor Howe.
Yes.
Councillor Korstanji.
Yes.
Councillor Vardy.
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
And that's carried.
All right, now we move to number 16, correspondence. We have 16.1. Actually, Councillor Charwa, we received your notice of motion after the approval of the agenda, so your notice of motion will be put forward on our November 6th agenda. All right, so we have 16.1, Aurora Council Resolution, Gender-Based and Intimate Partner Violence Epidemic. All right, we have seven correspondence. I thought that one was being lifted for separate consideration. It's not, so we just need a mover and seconder on the correspondence. Yeah, Which one would you like to lift for separate consideration?
16.5?
All right, well, we can just talk about it and then approve them if it's not controversial.
No, I want to echo and do anything we can to further support the City of Niagara Falls motion, to advocate to the federal government that it is absolutely not okay for Paul Bernardo to have been downgraded to medium security. This animal murdered and raped 18 women in this area. To all the victims and everyone who was impacted by that, this is absolutely unacceptable. This is deplorable.
All right, so we actually have two motions for correspondence. So the first one is for Niagara Region, City of Welland, Niagara Region, and Office of the Prime Minister. Those are being received, so mover and seconder for that one. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that the following correspondence be received. Niagara Region, Equity, Diversity and Inclusion, and the Damaging Impacts of Hate and Intolerance. City of Welland, Mental Health, Homelessness and Addiction. Niagara Region, Notice of Effective Date of Amendment to Niagara Region Courts Intermunicipal Agreement regarding Vision Zero, and Office of the Prime Minister establishing a guaranteed livable income. All in favor? Those are carried. Now we move, need a mover and seconder for the endorsed correspondence. Councillor Frake. And Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that the following correspondence be endorsed. Town of Aurora, gender-based and intimate partner violence. Town of Fort Erie, Niagara Region 2024 operating budget levy approval. City of Niagara Falls, support for keeping Paul Bernardo in maximum security placement. All in favor? That's carried. All right, the regional councillor is not here this evening. Now we move to section 18, bylaws. Can I please get a mover and seconder for the bylaws? Moved by Councillor Bradsey, second by Councillor Korstanji. Moved by Councillor Bradsey, second by Councillor Korstanji. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 23-80 to 23-85 inclusive, and that same be read a first time, considered and passed. All in favor? That's carried. All right, the next meeting of council is scheduled for November 6, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Now we are moving into a closed session to discuss the Lozani land transfer fifth wheel site and the closed minutes from September 18th. Need a mover and seconder for closed? Moved by Councillor Bradsey, second by Councillor Korstanji. Moved by Councillor Bradsey, second by Councillor Korstanji. Resolved that council meet in closed session under section 2392C of the Municipal Act, where a closed meeting is held if the subject matter being considered is a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or a local board. All in favor to go into closed? And that's carried. And we're now into closed. We'll be back into open after the closed session. Thank you for the public. All right, welcome back, public. We are now back in open session. Can I get a mover and seconder to approve the direction provided and closed? Moved by Councillor Bradzi, second by Councillor Korsanji. Moved by Councillor Bradzi, second by Councillor Korsanji. Resolved that the direction provided in closed session be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Need a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 23-86 and that same be read a first time, considered and passed. All in favor? That's carried. Meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone. Bye, Leanne.